Welcome, everybody, to our community gathering. It's a tradition we have every fifth Sunday at Third Street Church of God, where we have a special session. They've been virtual in the last few years because of the pandemic. And the topic that we're going to talk about today is artificial intelligence. When I mentioned the possibility about 6 months ago, it was met with a lot of enthusiasm. And so, we committed to doing it for the fifth Sunday in September. I purposely did not do much preparation until about 2 or 3 weeks ago because the topic is moving so fast that anything I did 6 months ago would be obsolete by today. So even now, the things that I'm going to present today might have been surpassed or made obsolete by current events. But we'll do the best we can. All right, I'm gonna put up a PowerPoint. Give me a second to get it started running.
Mhm.
I'm gonna share my screen.
Mhm.
Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the topic that what I titled this is artificial intelligence, primer, promise, and peril. I'll start out with a couple of demonstrations. First one is a chilling audio, Beethoven's 10th Symphony. So I'm gonna start playing it. I won't play the whole thing. Any Beethoven scholars can tell me what's strange about this? Any volunteers? Well, let me go ahead and tell you what Beethoven only wrote 9 symphonies. The 10th symphony was created using artificial intelligence. Now, this is actually being performed by a real orchestra, but it was composed by an AI with the help of Beethoven scholars, musicologists, and other experts. So it's a totally created entity. Here's a chilling video. This is Morgan Freeman. I will play the video.
I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see? I am not.
So that was synthetic Morgan Freeman. That was done a couple of years ago, and it was an involved process where they had an actor read that script, and they used AI to map the actor's facial expressions and voice onto a sample of Morgan Freeman. Now, this was done a couple of years ago. AI has evolved such that you could probably do the same thing now by just feeding a tool a script and just telling the tool which actor or which person you want it to imitate. So I actually tried that for this presentation, and the voice wasn't very good. So it's still evolving. But before we go forward, I'm going to go backwards with a little history. one of the early definitions of artificial intelligence was was created by a mathematician and scientist called Alan Turing, and he proposed what's called a Turing test. What this means is that how it works is that they would have a person interact with a computer terminal, and they would have a conversation with that terminal, and it's not known to that person whether or not the terminal is a person typing on the other side of the terminal or a computer. And if after a certain amount of time, the person cannot tell if it's a person or computer they're interacting with, then that's effectively artificial intelligence, or also known as machine intelligence. In 1956, there was a summer research project at Dartmouth University on artificial intelligence, and that was the first use of the actual term artificial intelligence. A lot of promise about thinking machines, machine intelligence, but AI was the first used in 1956, and a lot of high expectations. However, it did not meet the expectations. There's a lot of funding from the government and investors in different AI companies, but the results did not bear up. And this led to a period from the 60s to early 2000s known as AI winter, where the funding dried up. The government, like DARPA, Defense Advanced Projects Research Agency, and other government and corporate investors gave up on it. So there was a short revival in the 1980s because of expert systems, which is, I won't go into the details, but expert systems was using AI techniques on a very narrow domain. For instance, diagnosing medical illnesses and other kinds of things, mechanical issues and whatever. This is my own definition of artificial intelligence: a device that is able to respond appropriately to situations that are unforeseen by its builder. Now, I'll go into that in a moment. If you have been a programmer, you may have done programming, and programming is basically a series of if-then statements and rules to cover every possibility. For instance, if you wrote a program to calculate pay in a company, that paid wages on an hourly basis, it's a simple calculation of multiplying hours worked by that person's hourly rate to get their pay. You also have to deduct things like taxes and other things. But there are other kinds of things that happen that the programmer has to anticipate. For instance, overtime. If overtime is paid time and a half, you have to calculate that. If there's, say, a legal judgment against the employee where the wage is being garnished by the courts or the IRS, then you have to deduct that too. In any case, there are other possibilities that the programmer has to take into account when they write the program to calculate pay. Another example is just to tell you how complicated this can become using traditional programming. A checkers game, if you think of all the potential games played, there are 500 quintillion possible games, or 5 times 10 to the 20th power. So you multiply 10 times 10 times 10, 20 times, then multiply by 5. That's the number of possible checkers games, which is a huge number. But that just pales compared to chess, which is a much more complex game. It's 1 times 10 to the 120th possible games. And that's a impossibly huge number. That's more than the number of atoms in the universe, for instance. And so to program all those possibilities is just impossible. And it's known in programming circles as a combinatorial explosion. Now, more complex applications of real life are impossible to program using traditional methods. For instance, a self-driving car, you just can't foresee all the things that a car will encounter while it's going across the roadways. Or a student tutor, guiding the student through a body of knowledge and responding to the students' questions, testing the students, and making adjustments based on the students' responses, performance in testing. Just impossible. AI is a different kind of programming. the basic technology, the foundational technology is what's known as a neural network. It's replicating how organisms store knowledge. There are nodes and neurons and connections between those nodes. This is what happens in your brain and brain of a earthworm. I mean, it's more complicated with humans, but it's basically the same kind of thing. And so what you're doing with AI currently, you're training a neural network, feeding it a body of data, and letting the neural network make its own connections. Now, there's tweaking by engineers. They may do things like they would do test it by asking the AI questions and then give it feedback of the answers. And the AI will learn from the feedback whether or not that answer is acceptable, and then further modify itself. This is known as machine learning. For text, the particular manifestation is something called a large language model, where a large body of text, and we're talking billions of pages of data, are fed into a machine, and it creates its own neural network. And based on that, it's able to answer questions. Here's a simple example. Not all heroes wear, if you start out a phrase like that and feed that into a neural network, a text neural network, it will develop possibilities based on probabilities. So after the phrase, not all heroes wear, there will be various words that will appear with varying levels of frequency. So the one that appears most often in that body of text that the neural network owns is capes, which is 80%. So what the neural network would do then is add the word capes. And then after that, what word occurs with the greatest possibility after capes? But, the word but. So but is added. But then as you go forward, not all heroes wear capes, but what's the next word that occurs with the most probability? Some. And then after that, do. And after that is a period. Now, AI exploded in 2022 with ChatGPT. Some of you may have already used ChatGPT. And it fueled the AI boom. And it gave detailed responses to text prompts. But ChatGPT was the first of many other products. You may have heard of other ones, Gemini by Google and Copilot by Microsoft. We're going to do a demo of Copilot at the end of our session today. And by the way, think of questions that you might want to ask the AI, and we will do ask the questions of the AI and see what responses it gives us. AI is brought into other media. There are other tools out there, DALL-E, Stable Diffusion, Sora. Most products now have this capability, some kind of AI. It might be a standalone AI like Copilot, or it might be embedded in other products. The Zoom that we're looking at right now has an AI capability that was added a few months ago, and it will summarize what was discussed in the meeting. It's also embedded in hardware. Intel PCs, the newest ones have a chip in them. In fact, newest PCs will have a Copilot button. If you use a Windows PC, you might see a Copilot icon in the taskbar below, but there's a Copilot button on the newer PCs. The new iPhone 16 just came out a couple of days ago, and Apple actually calls their implementation Apple Intelligence. AI is adopted by other companies. Amazon, for instance, uses an AI to generate a summary of product reviews. There is an element of hype in AI right now. You hear AI just about every new product, and sometimes you wonder if it's really a real legitimate application of really using real AI. I use the word new hammer. What that means is that if you have a brand new hammer, all the world's problems look like nails. And I think that's some of that happening right now. What are some of the shortcomings? AI is not human intelligence, not yet. Some of the responses are off the wall. You see some of these images that came from an AI. Professional American football players. No, they're not women. You see a group of people in American colonial times. Likely they were not Asian, and founding fathers didn't look much like that. I think what happened is that in the tweaking of the AI, they wanted to be inclusive, and there's a switch that you can say, let's make the answers more inclusive, more representative of the population. But you get results like this when you do that. What you have down there is at the bottom is a footnote that one of my students submitted in a paper about a year ago. And it's called Investigating the Effectiveness of Mobile Video Conferencing for Cognitive Tasks in Virtual Teams on the Journal of Organizational and End-User Computing. Well, that article does not exist. I checked. This is an example of hallucinating. Sounds very credible. That journal exists, Journal of Organizational and End-User Computing. And those authors are real authors, but that article does not exist. That's an example of hallucination. Does anybody know what GIGO means? G-I-G-O? Anybody? Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yes. Yes, we just don't know what it is.
No.
Anybody know what GIGO means?
No.
Not I.
GIGO means garbage in, garbage out.
Oh, yes.
So AI is only as good as the training data that it's trained on. And sometimes there are biases in the training data. Amazon, for instance, set up an AI to screen resumes for people who applied for a job at Amazon. And it trained on current Amazon employees. Well, in the hiring that Amazon did before it used AI, there are implicit biases. Amazon's workforce is largely male. There are demographic characteristics that are a result of the biases in fallible humans. And so when they tried to use the AI learned from that data, so it would screen out female job candidates. So that's just an example of the biases in the training data. And also in the programming, in the tweaking of it, biases are introduced. The previous page, you want the AI to be inclusive. Well, it can be inclusive to a fault. This is an example of a 1943 German soldier. There's a black Nazi right there in the lower left-hand corner. But the one upper left-hand corner looks kind of representative, but the others in the lower right-hand corner it does too, but the other two don't. But that's GIGO. So that's one of the problems with AI. They're only as good as the data upon which they're trained. And if the data is flawed or biased or incomplete, those flaws will be carried forward by the AI in the further decisions that it makes. You may have heard the term generative AI, where an AI generates new data based on its training data. I'm not quite sure if AI really is truly, it could generate, and you'll see some pretty astonishing things when we do the demo, but there have been examples in the human past of people who had transcended previous models of doing things, and they have accomplished breakthroughs in a lot of different areas. And some of these breakthroughs have been met with incredulity, hostility, just disbelief that something like that could exist. So, but as time goes on, the breakthroughs that these individuals have accomplished have become part of the expanding scope of human endeavor. So just some examples I just want to present. So can an AI trained on this for house design, just a traditional house, can it produce this? Does anybody recognize the house on the right?
Falling Waters by Frank Lloyd Wright.
Right, exactly. It looks nothing like the previous house, the other house. So you wonder, Frank Lloyd Wright was a genius architect. And he broke a lot of rules. There's a lot of resistance, but Falling Water is considered a classic. And you wonder if an AI could have produced that. Give me some more examples. Can an AI trained on this traditional choir produce this? You recognize who that is?
Marvin Gaye.
No. Ty Trivet. You ever heard of Ty Trivet?
Oh, yeah.
Ty Trivet.
Yeah.
So, he's kind of radical. I could also cite Kirk Franklin, but they just broke the mold of gospel music. Can an AI trained on this, A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens and other classics, produce this? I don't know, but it's a question that can legitimately be asked. Can an AI trained on this produce this? The sculpture on the left is Michelangelo's David. The sculpture on the right is Picasso. It's a sculpture on City Hall in Chicago, City Plaza in Chicago. Can an AI trained on this classical music produce something like Miles Davis? Can an AI trained on this, the Mona Lisa, produce this, Van Gogh? Again, I don't know the answer. And you could say that AI now will be trained on Van Gogh and impressionistic painting. However, you wonder, are we going to miss other breakthroughs in artistic endeavors because everything's going to be produced by AI, which you wonder if it has the ability to transcend its training. Now I want to turn to AI and disinformation and misinformation. Just want to make a couple of clear definitions. Disinformation is knowingly spreading false information. Misinformation is unknowingly spreading it. I trust that nobody in this group is going to be an agent of disinformation. You're not going to knowingly spread false information, but you might be an agent of misinformation. Disinformation and misinformation were preceded by the internet, but accelerated by it. It was previously known as propaganda. AI makes it easier to be an agent of disinformation or misinformation. Here's some examples of deepfake pictures. Some things are clearly made up. It's Kamala Harris addressing looks like a communist convention in Chicago. And you know that's not right. Some things not so clear. Does the picture on the right look real? It's not. More deepfake images, Trump being arrested. And who's that person on Trump's side? You recognize who that is?
Biden.
Yep. So it's another deepfake image.
Oh,
And
gosh.
and the other picture on the other side is Trump dancing with Putin.
Putin.
Deepfake. It's not real. There's like an information video.
I, Kamala Harris, and your Democrat candidate for president, because Joe Biden finally exposed his senility at the debate. Thanks, Joe. I was selected because I am the ultimate diversity hire. I'm both a woman and a person of color. So if you criticize anything I say, you're both sexist and racist. I may not know the first thing about running the country, but remember, that's a good thing if you're a deep state puppet. I had 4 years under the tutelage of the ultimate deep state puppet, a wonderful mentor, Joe Biden. Joe taught me rule number 1, carefully hide your total incompetence. I take insignificant things and I discuss them as if they're significant. And I believe that exploring the significance of the insignificant is in itself significant. talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time, and there is such great significance to the passage of time. Another trick is trying to sound black. I pretend to celebrate Kwanzaa, and in my speeches, I always do my best Barack Obama impression. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type. And okay, look, maybe my work addressing the root causes of the border crisis were catastrophic, but my knowledge of international politics is truly shocking. The United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. It is an alliance that is strong and enduring. And just remember, when voting this November, it is important to see what can be unburdened by what has been. And by what has been, I mean Joe Biden. You think the country went to over the past 4 years? You ain't seen nothing yet.
So it's kind of chilling that you know, they took samples of her voice and created a speech from her, and they pieced together a lot of different videos to present a very unflattering portrait of Kamala Harris. So please, please don't be an agent of misinformation. Again, I trust that you wouldn't be intentionally spread false information, but you can, you know, if you share a tweet, a Facebook posting that is itself disinformation, you're an agent of misinformation. You're misinforming the people who look at what you post. So here are some of the tips that you should take into account as you look at a post and decide whether or not to repost it. Consider the source. You know, look at who's originally posting something. What is their motivation? What's their funding? What's their reputation? You know, people post things because, you know, some people express a certain point of view because they're paid to do so. Sometimes there are true believers who truly believe that migrants are eating cats and dogs in Springfield, Ohio. But there are some who repeat that because they're paid to do so. It's the funding and the reputation. What I have here showing here is a media bias chart. And I'm not saying that this is the ultimate authority, but it's something that you can consult with as to what are the political leanings of various outlets, from left to leaning left to center to lean right to right. Some of these are, you know, you might not be surprised to see that Newsmax and OAN are very much right wing, whereas the Huffington Post, HuffPost, is very much left wing. Some of these are surprises to me, so I'm not quite sure that I agree with the categorization of these different media outlets. But still, it's out there. You can make your own decision, but at least make it from an informed basis. Investigate if what you see has been repeated elsewhere. So if you see something that seems kind of outlandish, see if somebody else is repeating it. Google is your friend, or if you don't want to use Google, you could use, I use a lot, DuckDuckGo. It's an anonymous search engine. Snopes.com and factcheck.org, they make it their business to determine if a particular story is real or fake. And you might question whether or not they're accurate, but they do at least provide documentation of why they come to the conclusions that they come to. Consider what isn't said. This is a posting that came up on my Facebook about Nathan Bedford Forrest. And I'll read it because it's kind of blurry because I blew it up from the original posting. Frontiersman, husband, father, enlisted as a private in 1861, self-funded his own cavalry battalion, wounded in battle 4 times, elevated to lieutenant general by war's end, fought Reconstruction, promoted reconciliation, railroad executive, advocate of black rights, devoted Christian. This bust was in the I think it's Tennessee state capitol, sort of a Mount Rushmore. Now, what isn't said is that Nathan Bedford Forrest was the first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. So they decided not to post that tidbit of information. Now, you might have gotten a clue with the fact that he fought Reconstruction, but you have that clue if you know what Reconstruction is. Just a little pitch for Black history, teaching Black history. But again, consider what isn't said in some of these postings. And the way to find out what isn't said is to look at other sources. I do want to make a pitch for traditional media. Traditional media goes through a process. And this is just an example of an investigative story. There's a lot of different steps that are gone through to make sure that the story, when it is posted, is legit, that there aren't any problems, factual, legal problems with what they report. In the internet social media age, I got an idea, I posted. So something you see maybe just somebody's fevered dreams about what's happening, and there may be no evidence to back it up. They just posted it. And the posting from Washington Post and posting from Joe Willie, they both show up on your Facebook feed or your Snapchat feed. They have the same level of visibility, but one is legit, one is, say, less than legit. Detecting deepfake images. You may have seen some of these as you browse through social media. Some of the clues, they're hyper-realistic, ultra-sharp. I would say check the fingers and the limbs. That's what I always do. See the picture on the left, look at the girl on the right side. See her hand?
Mm-hmm.
She's missing a finger. The picture on the left looks like a nice picture of 4 elderly women in a friendly embrace, but look at their arms. Do those arms look right to you?
No. No, they don't. You don't know where they're coming from.
So, take a closer look. Sometimes the background is blurry, and often you see the multiple postings with the same caption. I've gotten a lot of postings that say you won't regret liking this picture. So you go back to the source and just see it's just somebody just trying to get attention.
Mm-hmm.
Confirmation bias is something you want to avoid. Focusing on news or information that fits your worldview, and you ignore or belittle any contradicting data. So one way to avoid that is to recognize it for what it is. You tend to read stuff with which you agree. Well, look at media that you know holds a different point of view, just to get a sense of how things that there's like a particular news story about what's happening in Springfield, Ohio. What does Fox News or OAN say about it? Beware of the algorithm. The algorithm, what I mean by algorithm is that these social media sites, their business model is to keep you engaged. So when you express interest in something by clicking on it, they're going to feed you more stuff like that. And part of the algorithm, particularly for Facebook, is that anything that is controversial that you like is probably going to get a higher score and going to more likely to show up in your feed. The picture I put there is a drunk person leaning against a lamppost, and there's a saying: you want to use a lamppost not as a drunkard uses it, because the drunkard leans against the lamppost, not looking for illumination, but support. So you really want to look for illumination and not supporting your worldview. Legal and regulatory concerns. Privacy. AI allows sophisticated analysis of your digital footprint and can make correlations within your data and correlate your profile with other like-minded persons. And based on that, make some pretty accurate predictions about things you'd be interested in doing. Facial recognition is another issue pertaining to privacy, where because of facial recognition and the proliferation of outdoor cameras, there's no anonymity when you go outside, particularly in a crowded area. So your movements can be tracked just by recognizing your face. However, again, part of that GIGO conception is that AI has had trouble recognizing Black faces because it was trained on white faces. Intellectual property, there's IP protections like that's set up by the government, like copyright, trademark, and patent. Do they apply to things that are created by AI? And who owns that content? So when you create something using AI, is it yours or does it belong to ChatGPT or whoever? The legal framework hasn't been put together for that. If the AI uses your work to generate new material, is that an infringement? That's being worked out. The New York Times is suing OpenAI, which made ChatGPT, and Microsoft, because their products would use the New York Times as part of this body of training data. So the New York Times is saying, we should get some benefit from that. Liability. Who's liable when there's an injury or loss due to an AI? The AI producer, whoever trained it, whoever's using it. Safety. How can we have protection from malicious use of AI? And not just misinformation. AI can be used to injure a biological agent of biological warfare using gene sequencing, for instance. There have been demonstrations of hacking self-driving car. So if you imagine you're in a self-driving car and somebody takes it over and starts using it to run through pedestrians. Energy. AI is a tremendous user of energy, and utilities are racing to keep up with demand. You may have heard some of the disputes in Northern Virginia where it's become sort of a center of data centers. The data centers are big buildings. We have racks and racks of computers, and they use a lot of energy. AI is a big user of energy, along with other kinds of things like blockchain and self-driving cars. Electric cars. All those things use energy from the grid. So the utilities are struggling to keep up. Another issue is balancing with innovation. All the laws and regulations come up. One of the things that they're thinking about is we don't want to stifle innovation. We want to encourage it, but we just don't want it to become a safety issue or a privacy issue. And global coordination. There are a lot of different countries that are involved. There's kind of an AI arms race equivalent to the space race or the Cold War, where companies or countries have made it their company strategy to become a leader in artificial intelligence. And sometimes when they do that, they are paying less attention to some of these other issues. Governments respond. In 2023, Biden issued an executive order to create a roadmap of how the government should deal with AI. There's a lot of legislation in Congress, state and local legislation. The UN just issued a resolution on regulation AI, and their focus has been on human rights. The European Union had an act, created an act in 2024, and China and other countries are looking to regulate artificial intelligence. So there's a lot of movement, and it's a very fluid landscape. So, is my job in danger? Will AI take over my job? I hate to say this, but probably, or eventually. Or at least your job is going to be changed, and perhaps radically. And one thing that might give you a bit of comfort is that it depends on your job and your age. If you are, say, 60 years old and maybe 5 years from retirement, you're probably safe. But if you're a 25-year-old, you really need to think about the career that you've chosen, and is it vulnerable to being taken over by AI, your job? The thing is, AI is getting better every day. More powerful computers are being developed, and the technology that's coming up It's called quantum computing, which is just a radical increase in the capability of computers. Models get more sophisticated, but still there's some ways to go to replace human intelligence. You might want to go to this website, willrobotstakemyjob.com. And I just put up carpenters because we do have some people in the church who work with their hands. So if you're a carpenter, you're probably at minimal risk. But if you are, say, an administrative assistant, you want to think about whether or not you want to stay in that career. The future of AI, how will it and we evolve? AI may come to equal or surpass or be indistinguishable from human intelligence. Going back to the Turing test, we may not have a precise definition of AI, but it may be that we don't need one because you just can't tell the difference between AI and human intelligence. Probably more importantly is that we may cede more and more responsibilities in our lives to AI. That could lead to both good or bad futures, and there's two sides of the same coin. Good or bad future, and I'll just present some scenarios. Optimistic and pessimistic. Now, AI plus robotics. You may have seen some videos on YouTube of robots doing, looking as fluid in their movements as humans, navigating and showing facial expressions. The optimistic scenario is having, you may remember this, the Jetsons, where you have a robot maid who handles all the household tasks. So that's an optimistic projection. Pessimistic, you recognize this movie? Anybody know what this movie is? Megan. The plot of Megan was that this was a doll that was a robot that had animatronic capabilities, and it went rogue, and it killed a lot of people. So, the programming just wasn't right. So robots, AI by itself, you're talking about misinformation or disinformation. However, when you pair a hostile robot with an AI, then they can actually manipulate the physical space, and so there's some concerns there. Good or bad future? AI with robotics becomes able to perform most jobs. Optimistic, there may come a time when we don't have to work anymore. So, the kitten there is very happy because they're walking out the door on the last day of work. So that's an optimistic concern, that you don't have to work anymore. However, there's another subtle issue there in terms of, if you don't work, what do you do? So much we sort of gauge our self-worth by the work that we do. And if that goes away, how do we gauge our self-worth? And it just so happens that we work because we have to, because we work to earn money. So even if we hate our jobs, at least it's a means for us to provide for ourselves and our family. However, AI and robotics are able to do things like farming, manufacturing, things like that. And there's no need to work. And there have been experiments in something called a universal basic income, UBI, where everybody in a particular limited location, like a town or a county, is given a basic income where, it might be $1,000 a month, which means you don't have to work to earn money, you have money. So what do you do? What's the meaning of your life if you don't have to work? Because so many of us who work, derive meaning from the work that we do. And, if you want to get a sense of that, just talk to retired people. So many retired persons, they find themselves being useless and wasting away because that part of their life has gone away. So, how do we deal with that? And that may take several generations for that to work itself out if jobs go away. Good or bad future? AI gives humans more leisure time. What's the optimistic scenario that imagine us having more leisure time to enjoy ourselves, do recreational activities, just have fun. Pessimistic, we may turn
Boredom.
into shapeless blobs.
Hmm.
And this is from the movie Wall-E, where there was a spaceship and all humans' needs were taken care of. And so they spent all their time in leisure, and not active leisure, but passive leisure. Good or bad future, AI becomes independent from humans. AI, artificial intelligence right now, depends on humans to train them, to build them, to provide the infrastructure, build the computers upon which they run. There may come a time when AI can build their own computers and create their own training data. So optimistic future may be that AI becomes a partner to humans and will work hand in hand to further develop the planet and the species. What's a pessimistic? AI may decide that humans are unnecessary on the planet and decide to eliminate us. This is from Terminator. So I don't know what the future is going to be. I just want to present, the both sides of the coin. Nobody knows the future. That's kind of the definition of the future. Conclusions: AI is evolving at light speed. It's in every aspect of society, and it can be a tool for good or evil. Society and its rules and mores and regulations and laws and so forth is trying to catch up. Where will all this lead? Who knows? It's going to be kind of interesting. So buckle up, enjoy the ride. Okay. So we're going to do a demo of AI. And I'm going to use Copilot from Microsoft. So let me bring it up and share my screen. All right, I'm sharing my screen. Think about what questions you want to ask it, okay? I'm going to ask a few questions just to get it started. And, it's basically saying, asking anything. So one way to get a sense of what AI can do is ask it a question that you know something about. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
So I'm going to ask it, tell me about 3rd Street Church of God in Washington. So it says, 3rd Street Church of God is located at 1204 3rd Street, Washington, D.C. Church is led by Reverend Dr. Cheryl J. Sanders, offer in-person online worship service. Join the services by live stream on Facebook, YouTube, or the website. We also provide a conference call option for those who prefer to dial in. Would you like to know more about their services or any upcoming events? You want to ask a follow-up question? What are the church's core beliefs? Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm going to ask a question about do we have any Jamaicans here on the call, on the Zoom? Anybody been to Jamaica before?
Been there.
Give me an itinerary for a 5-day adventurous vacation in Jamaica. ride Montego Bay, check to your hotel, head to Doctor's Cave Beach, enjoy a welcome dinner at a local restaurant, explore the hip strip, Ocho Rios, Negro, Blue Mountains in Kingston, Port Antonio departure. Does this make sense to anybody who's been to Jamaica before? Okay, let me try another one. Write me a poem about October. What do you think?
No, can't hardly see it.
Oh, you can't see it. Let me see if I can.
Maybe you can just read it.
Okay. October whispers through the trees with golden leaves and a gentle breeze. The air turns crisp, the skies grow clear, and autumn's magic draws us near. Pumpkins grow with candlelight, harvest moons adorn the night, sweaters warm and fires bright. October's charm is pure delight. The scent of apples, spice, and pine, a season shift, a sacred sign. Nature's palette, bold and grand, paints a wonderland by hand. Children laugh in fields of hay, as scarecrows guard the bales of hay. The world slows down, a peaceful pause. In October's embrace, we find our cause. Not bad?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
But does this mean that this is going to have an effect on teachers, the students cheating in school? Is it AI?
Yeah. They were talking about that.
Yeah.
Doing that.
Teachers, we have teachers or professors in our group can talk about your experience. Have you experienced students using AI or cheating AI? How can you detect it? How can you tell? Well, I just give my own experience. The Sonite presents a paper or homework assignment that looks very different than what they've submitted before. That makes me suspicious. Also, footnotes that are, I check the sources that students cite, see if they actually exist. There are AI detectors out there, but they're not very reliable.
Right.
I had tried one about a year ago, and I went back to the site just a couple of weeks ago, and they took it down. Doesn't exist anymore. So, I mean, it might be instinct too. I mean, AI stuff is written very, very well. I mean, it's like perfect English. And, oftentimes the student, you see a typo here, a subject verb disagreement there. Students seldom write something that's perfect.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
To AI, I wrote down a lot of different questions, but you answered them in your presentation. Thank
Okay.
you. But one of the questions that I wanted to know is which country is the most advanced in AI, and how is AI going to affect future election results?
Okay, the first one is which country is the most advanced in AI?
Right. In the US.
Says United States considered the most advanced country in artificial intelligence. There's a Stanford index, highest number of notable AI models. China's another major player. There's specific aspect you're interested in. So ask these follow-up questions, it gives you follow-up questions. And notice that however you respond, if you click on one of these, it uses your responses to learn more and develop its model.
Ask it a math question.
Pardon me?
Ask it a math question.
What
Like 1 + 3.
is the square root of 134, comma 655,851? Okay. Searching. I mean, just a calculation. Does that make sense? Who was that? Allison asked that question.
Yeah, I asked that because AI is typically terrible at math.
Maybe
Really?
a simpler problem, like just a straight addition. It's not good.
Sometimes it messes it up.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What are the possibilities of medical research and assembly line production? You mentioned agriculture before, as
Yeah.
planting seeds and cultivating crops with heavyweight equipment year-round, 24 hours a day. What is the possibility of separating Siamese twins, which is a 24-hour operation, by a dozen or more doctors? Brain surgery, complicated medical procedures that are manually tedious and time consuming.
Yeah. To me, that's where robotics come in. Where can everybody still see this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Screen. I was providing a lot of information. One of the advantages that humans have is their dexterity. Surgical work requires physical dexterity, and robots aren't quite there yet, but I think they'll get there eventually. Another thing that AI might make an imprint on is genetic therapies, where you can custom design a drug based on a patient's genetic makeup to treat a particular condition, like sickle cell or whatever. All right, here's an interesting one. Well,
I
we've been dealing with text, but how about pictures?
have a
Give
question.
a picture of a female prophet. Ooh, okay.
It's telling you prophets are not supposed to be female.
I did this prompt not long ago. Maybe let me see if it has it in my history.
Prophetess, prophecy.
So it does illustrate a point where, where AI can be used in a negative. For instance, putting a famous actor or actress in a porno film, creating a reality that, is a violation of the actor's dignity and privacy. So they put in guardrails to prevent stuff like that happening. And maybe I hit one of those guardrails. Like I said, I was able to do that before. Okay. How about this?
Alan,
Yes.
I have a question I would like to ask AI, and that is, please list 5 reasons or warnings for a person who's using AI.
Of what?
For a person using AI?
Yes.
Okay. Privacy concerns. Be cautious about sharing personal information with AI systems. And that's a good point too. You don't want to tell your whole story to the AI. It becomes a part of the AI platform. Bias and fairness. AI systems can sometimes exhibit biases based on the data they were trained on. That's a point I made earlier. Over-reliance. AI is incredibly helpful. It's important not to rely on it entirely. There was a story of a person in some European country who became very reliant on AI, and the AI, and he was depressed, and the AI actually suggested to him that he should commit suicide, and he did. And so his family is suing the AI company. Security risks. AI systems can be targeted for cyber attacks. Ensure that AI tools you use are secure and regularly updated, protecting its vulnerabilities. Ethical considerations. Be mindful of the ethical implications of using AI. Give me a picture of a robot cat. Just generated that.
Mm.
You could change it, watercolor. Recreate the image.
Mhm.
So yeah, you can do image generation. Here's one. I would like to order a latte in French. That's one of the AI applications on a phone that are being put on phones now. It's language translation.
Could I ask one more question?
Sure.
Okay, should or will AI be used to count or verify election results? Should it be or will it be?
Sure it will be.
Well, you know, in Georgia, they just passed a law that required votes to be hand counted.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I asked that question. You know,
I can imagine a worse way to count votes. But they bailed out. Well, what are the pros and cons of using AI for vote counting? Oh, talking about elections. So in the programming of Copilot, they took elections out of bounds. Now, there are ways to circumvent what an AI, I mean, the restrictions on AI. They call it hacking in AI. And, you know, there are people who make it their business to spend a lot of time figuring out ways to get around some of these restrictions on what AI can do. Give me an elephant joke. What?
Elephant. How to buy him.
I'm gonna call it new topic.
You're talking Republicans.
Maybe it's like, okay, give me a joke about Star Trek. Why did Captain Kirk go into space? Because he wanted to boldly go where no man has gone before. That's not a joke.
No, it's a fact.
Well, you're seeing some of the limitations of AI.
No.
Here's something that's going to be kind of interesting. I'm going to use a plugin called Suno. and I'm going to have it write me a gospel song about what?
Jesus.
Well, a gospel song about the Peril.
So it's just a short song. Feel the power all around at the cross. It's creating the music too. Feel the power all around at the cross where love is found. Light that shines through darkest night. In the cross we find our sight. It's working on the music part of it now. Take a minute. Mindful of the time, we'll have to start bringing this to a close, but I hope this gave you a sense of what AI can do and some of its shortcomings. All right, let me play this.
Feel the power all around at the cross where love is found.
Can you hear that?
Yes. Yes.
Light that shines through darkest night. In the cross we find our side.
But Brother Alan, that sounds more Christian than gospel.
Yeah. You could probably tie it into a particular artist.
So a lot of artists are probably using this.
Yeah.
Come up with their music.
This is totally synthetic. And I think they're limited to 1 minute. So any budding composers can, so the question is, if I have Copilot write a song and I release it and it becomes a hit, who gets the credit for it?
Should be Copilot. They wrote it.
This might just give them inspiration, to the song. They can just take it and change the words.
There's so much more we could talk about here. I have a question. If you have Copilot write an inspirational passage and you were inspired by it, can you say that that passage was God inspired?
Wow.
Sketchy.
That's a very good question.
All right, we'll need to bring this to a close. I want to give Superintendent Charlene Carney a chance to make a few remarks. Then we'll pass it on to Pastor Sanders for final remarks and benediction.
I would like to just say real quickly that thank you, Dr. Allen, for bringing this information to us. We've just become smarter. And we as Christians, we need to be wise and we need to be aware. And so I thank you so much for bringing it to us just as clear. I understand it so well. Thank you so much.
And it's scary.
It's very, very scary, yes. Especially for educators.
Yeah. Okay, Pastor, final remarks.
I just want to thank you again, Alan, for very excellent presentation. Thanks to everyone who participated. I wish we had more time for Q&A, but I just have a couple minutes to get ready to lead our worship service this morning. But let's ask the Lord to continue to give us good information so that we can be alert and aware. And we don't, God has not given us a spirit of fear, so we don't accept this information with fear, but as a way of making sure that we can be vigilant. And I really appreciate the advice that we received about spreading misinformation and being deceived, because we know that the Lord does not want us to be deceived. So that's a very important reason for doing these kinds of sessions. So I really appreciate everybody's participation. Let's be dismissed. We're so thankful, God, that you have given us a ministry of Christian education in our church. Thank you for our minister and the fine presentation of information and images that he has presented to us today. And we hope, God, that you will help us in our everyday lives, in our use of social media, in our work, and even in our day-to-day lives, that you will enable us to learn how to distinguish between the things that are helpful tools and the things that may expose us to harm. We're very grateful in our confidence in you. We ask, God, that as we continue, that you will bless our Sunday school, bless our church, and thank you for our online community. We ask all these things as we're transitioning now into our service of worship. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Amen.